Hey everyone, I've got a book review today, and today it's Mark Manson's Models. The title of it is Models Attract Women Through Honesty, and it's by Mark Manson, which was a big surprise to me because I did not expect anything like this from Mark Manson. It was almost like a hidden book because we all know Mark Manson to be a very, very successful author in the general self-improvement space. With his more mainstream books are things like Subtle Art of Not Giving an F, which did very well, and I'd read that, and I didn't even know about this book. And there's a story behind that because, believe it or not, so this got recommended to me by a friend who is a very successful dating coach who's probably read everything, including all the very extreme stuff that is out there, and recommended this book to me as a must read. And the reason why it was a surprise to me is, firstly, I would never expect to take any advice on dating from Mark Manson, but believe it or not, he used to be a pickup coach, which I didn't even know about. So before he went into the mainstream, like his current self-improvement space, which obviously he's got a lot of success from, he used to tour the world doing pickup tuition, and do seminars and things, and he'd travel the world and teach people how to, the things like pickup skills, dating skills. And he wrote this book, and this was the book that made him the initial success to allow him to quit the coaching and become a full-time author. And after he'd finished writing this book, I wouldn't, I don't know if he explains it in the introduction. He almost got embarrassed by it, and he tried to bury it, and change his whole, so he sort of changed his whole identity into the guy that he is today, the very successful author that he is today. And he actually went back and he edited it and softened it, if you will. It changed some type. There's the first section is all about being non-needy, and he retitled that into a bit more of a politically correct term. And then once he got success with his current books, he went back over it a few years ago and thought, no, that's not what I meant. And he rechanged it back to the original version. So this is a new copy. This is back to how he originally intended it to be. Anyway, about the book, the reason why it is, in my opinion, one of the best books in terms of, if you're going to read a book about dating, I would definitely read this. Right. Not only is it about dating, there's a lot of parallels with general self-improvement. So you've seen some of my other videos where I talk about the way to live is to create an identity for yourself and then start living according to that identity. I talk about this in my kind of continuous improvement and journaling and all that kind of thing. So you create an identity for yourself and then you live according to that identity. It's got a lot of that in it because when Mark Manson, the title of it, Attract Women Through Honesty, what Mark means by honesty, he talks about true vulnerability, and living vulnerable is not, Mark's definition of vulnerability is not like crying your heart out or, like confessing or, being acting really needy and weak. By vulnerability, what it actually means is sticking your neck out and going for things in life without fear, almost like you might get rejected. So what? That's who you are, and you're sticking your neck out and you're going for it. That is true vulnerability. And I love that definition. It's very, very good. So, into the book, right. The first part, he talks about non-neediness, and something that I've sort of witnessed a lot with friends and stuff is if there's kind of, you've got your, there's three different categories of people, if you will. Here we're talking about guys. So three different categories of guys. You've got like your nice guys who are, you might see them as weak, and then you've got your sort of players, if you will, like, you know, the real kind of strategists and the players and the player boys over here, the alphas. Well, that's a strange term, but I think you know what I mean with that. And then in the middle, you've got what Mark describes as like being that true, living honestly and vulnerably in the middle. I don't know if it's in the middle. It's kind of the best of both, right? And this is a very similar concept to another book that I've got, Nice Guys and Players by Ron Wills. This guy's pretty cool. He writes a lot for the, in America basically, for the black guys, and he's brilliant. But he calls it Nice Guys and Players. So Nice Guys, same thing. Players are the players. And what he actually says is you want to become, he calls it a real man. So what does that mean? Both books explain the same thing, but we'll talk about models. So a nice guy is obviously very kind of needy and trying to please a woman and all that kind of thing, doing things for her to try and get his own way. That is very similar to Robert Glover's book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, if you will. So, you know, you're almost like trying to be a nice guy, people pleaser, and trying to keep everyone happy. And you might get some scraps, but it doesn't really work. The opposite to that is being a complete a-hole, if you will, or, you know, treat them mean, keep them keen type thing on the extreme side. And that is also, Mark Manson explains that is also quite needy as well, because you're almost playing a game, you know what I mean? You're doing it deliberately to try and get what you want. Whereas what you really should be doing is just living honestly in the middle. So you've got to, and I find this like people that I've spoke to, like even myself, I've been through this, like where you may come from a very, very insecure, people pleasing person, and then, you know, something happens, you get your heart broke or whatever, and you go massively opposite. You overcompensate in the opposite direction, and your plan really is to fall back. But in order to fall back, you need to develop some boundaries and some self-worth to, you know, because if you stay in the middle, you haven't got any boundaries. That's why you're sort of either one extreme or the other. But once you develop some boundaries, you can kind of fall back into a comfortable position and live honestly and just accept rejection and just, you know, with true vulnerability. So it is a nice concept. I mean, you'd have to read the book to really internalize it. I'm just going to pick out some. I've wrote lots of notes in this. So around page 57, 58, there's a section where Mark Manson says, practice vulnerability by living honestly. And point one, living based on our own values. So what we're doing here is we're developing a lifestyle based on our own terms. And that is, you know, that's creating that identity and then living it according to, you know, you're on your own terms. If you think of the opposite of that, that might be stuck in a job that you hate and you're desperate to get out of it, or stuck in a situation that you hate and you can't change anything. That's really not living honestly, because you're not, you know, it's not on your own terms. So basically, you want to create a lifestyle, which might start with, right, I'm going to create an identity. This is me. This is what I do. And then you go and live it, right? The second point is comfortable with our intentions, right? This is boldness and without fear. So if you have an intention of what you want to do, it's almost like the No More Mr. Nice Guy again. I'm not saying, you know, be an a-hole or whatever, but you can't be too worried about what other people think. And if you have an intention, like that might be in the dating context, you have an intention to, you know, spend some time with a particular person or whatever, or you might see someone on the street. You just got to go for it. You know what I mean? You've got to communicate your intentions without fear. And then number three is expressing our desires, basically, communicating, right, clearly and without fear again. So them three things there, you know, they're quite powerful. They're all about, you could sort of pull them back to that identity thing. This is who I am, and this is just what I do. And there's sort of no fear in it. You know, you're comfortable with yourself. And this is all, it's all inner work basically. On page 89, there's a, hang on, if I just skip to it. Page 89, right. This is chapter 6, the 3 fundamentals. And this is quite good because talk about this in detail, but he headlines them here. The 3 fundamentals are creating an attractive and enriching lifestyle, overcoming your fears and anxieties around socializing, intimacy, and sexuality. I don't know if I can say that on YouTube, but there you go. I think you know what I mean. And then mastering the expression of your emotions and communicating fluidly. So obviously there's a bit of emotional self-control there, but the communication fluidly. So an example of that might be you meet someone, just communicate honestly. Just be, hi, Mandy, how are you doing? I thought you looked nice, or whatever. Don't be creepy, but just the real crux of this, if you're coming at it from a genuine point of view, if it's your genuine self and you're not putting on a mask, because I do believe in the early days, if you're coming at this from a complete like nice guy, no success in the dating space, there is a bit of element of fake it until you make it, until you really, because what you want to do is just transform your whole approach and build some confidence and self-worth and that kind of thing. But until that point, you have to fake it until you make it. So that's where things like canned lines and rehearsed tips and I cut tips and tricks, whatever. But there are there are people that will literally teach you what to say in any given scenario, and you can learn as many of them lines as you want. But you want to get to a point where basically it's just your genuine self. You've got high self-worth and confidence, and you're comfortable with yourself and who you are, and you're also comfortable with rejection. And if you get all them things in place, you can basically, it's just natural. You don't need any can lines. But yeah, obviously when you're starting out, I did the live stream with Chris, and we talked about the book, Chris Camwell's book, Atomic Attraction, which is one of them books that's fabulous if you know nothing and you just kind of like wanting to improve. Probably start there, but you've got to read this, Mark Manson's Models. It is actually a fantastic book because that's why I like it, because it's a book on basically aimed at inner work, solving there are some sections in the back where he starts talking about approaches, and in the back, once you get past that, it's a little bit more like Chris Camwell's Atomic Attraction, because he does actually give you a few sort of actionable advice. But the bulk of this book is more about general self-improvement to improve your confidence, self-worth, and almost like that no fear approach to life. And whilst this is in the dating context, I believe it's cross transferable to any area, like even in business. I've got I've been doing a lot of coaching with a business coach who's taught me a lot about negotiation, which is fantastic. And it's all the same. There's a lot of communication, and creating that identity in business as well, as you are the successful person, the expert in that area, and actually believing it rather than going into a business meeting with a bit of imposter syndrome. So in a business context, you could see the imposter syndrome as being like the nice guy, covert contracts, not really comfortable in your own skin. I'll just read the summary on the back here because it's really good. Models is a book becoming an attractive man, based not on tricks, tactics, games, or techniques, but on self-development. Its truths are backed by the decades of psychological research. Its focus is on the emotional process of seduction rather than agonizing over logical steps. Its goal is to create a powerful connection with women instead of trying to impress them. It's the most mature and honest guide on how a man can attract women without faking behaviour, without lying, and without emulating others. Stop acting like an attractive man and become an attractive man. That's quite a good summary. So yeah, that's why it's really good. Everything you'll learn in here will probably bleed into other areas of life and make you successful. Because attraction, it's not just about attracting the people that you want to spend time with. You can be attractive in any situation, in a social situation, in a professional situation, and it will just benefit you, killing non-neediness. You don't want, even in the business context, you don't want any kind of neediness or feeling like you need someone's approval. If you go into like a sales meeting and you just have some kind of imposter syndrome, the prospect can sniff it. They can smell it. Even if you're on a video call, they can just they can sense how kind of like desperate you are for that sale. Whereas if you just go in a bit like this, you're talking about approaching a woman here, as a being an attractive man approaching a woman without fear. Same in a sales situation in business. I think it's a great book for overall self-improvement. Like I say, I was really surprised by this book. I've read a lot of books like this, and I would say this is an absolute must read. Hope you enjoyed this summary. Go and grab yourself a copy. Hopefully you're as surprised as I am, because I wasn't expecting this at all. Really good book. And yeah, see you all next time.